Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back again to have another update of some TNA wrestling shenanigans, and this update is for the undersige show. Now, something that they announced, and I believe we discussed this a little bit before, the match for Matt Hardy and his mystery tag partner. It's Leo Slater! Surprise! Actually, I really think that they should not have announced this, but whatever. It does make some amount of sense that they announced it in some ways. It would have been kind of weird or whatever it was. You know, that Leon just so happens to continue to be kind of featured in this story and then it's not him. But I feel like it does sort of conclude that, in other words, they couldn't find somebody else or whatever else it would be. And in some ways, it also concludes that you don't have many plans right now, at least for Leon. So, and that isn't 100% bad, but it's not 100% good either. Realistically, you should be finding stuff for him to do. And, I think, before it was, him and Casey, those guys, they should have had, an ongoing feud and should have had a match at this show, or they should have had, Leon challenging somebody for a number one contendership or something like that. Or, indeed, make, a match between those two, have them have separate matches in some sort of tournament or something, to advance them in a number one contendership for the X Division title, and then, have that payoff here, or whatever. But still, whatever. I get it. You need somebody to team with Matt. Who else can team with Matt? Makes sense. Okay, so we'll move on to some other matches that they actually announced, and I believe it's 3. I don't know which one to start with. I think I'm going to start with this one. Tessa Blanchard with Robert Stone versus Ariana Grace with Santina Marella. Now, Ariana Grace, she is I don't want to say too much about her, but she's not a full-time wrestler, and she's not that great of a wrestler. She's not a bad wrestler. She's just not in the league of someone like Tessa Blanchard. Especially considering that she's really not wrestling a whole lot, but whatever. So I do feel like this is going the way of Tessa, which it's really weird where Tessa's kind of at right now. She's not really going for the title, and it's well, what are you going to do with her for the next however long you've got her? I don't know. That starts becoming well, what can we do with her? Type thing. So I get it in a way. She needs another win to get back on track, kind of thing. And this feud or this rivalry in some ways has been brewing for quite a while. So kind of put a cap on it in some ways. I kind of feel like at some point Robert Stone and Santino might wrestle each other, but then again, both of them are semi-retired for the control of TNA or whatever, or something like that. I don't know. Maybe you maybe do it like the billionaire, whatever it was thing at WrestleMania, the billionaire challenge or whatever they called it. I can't remember what it was. Where Vince McMahon had his hand-picked henchman, and Donald Trump had his hand-picked henchman, and it was Umaga versus Bobby Lashley, with the billionaires in the corner being the managers and whatnot. So that would be what I would do, kind of maybe with these guys, because that sounds like, in a way, this is kind of in a way that, but it isn't, as much. Obviously, at some point, I feel like that whole, the control of TNA needs to be on the line or whatever else it is. Maybe that'll be at Slammiversary. I'm not sure, but it surely will have to happen at some point. So yeah, but I'm definitely thinking Tessa's winning this for now. And in that match of saying, maybe it should be somebody, but then again, It's like if you were to say, oh yeah, put my money on Robert, well, I don't know about that because, like, how much is he going to be involved with the company? He's probably not going to be involved with the company for long, not long term, not 2 years, not 10 years, not 20 more years, whatever it's going to be, like, and full time on a full time basis. Like, come on, like maybe Santino isn't going to do that either. But again, it's like, if you're thinking like somewhat long term, it's like, well, it does kind of, push yourself to saying, well, Santino's gonna be here every single week because that's what he's paid to do. And yes, you can pay somebody to come in, but it's like, yes, they have a lot more other commitments, so it's not just as simple as that. And yes, people go on the road 360 something days of the year or whatever else it is, but again, it's just asking for trouble type thing. But anyway, we'll move on. AJ Francis with Casey Navarro versus Mike Santana. Like, they teased this like a long time ago. A long time ago. And now it's gonna happen. I'm not too sure about this one. I guess it's a match that they kind of went, wait a minute, we never actually pulled the trigger on doing this kind of thing, and we kind of need to give Santana something to do while we're, again, trying to pad things out and whatnot so that, he can finally get to the title or whatever else it is, or finally get in that picture or whatever else it is. I don't know. In some ways, I do kind of feel like you should say, well, let's put him in or try to put him in the, international title division, but I don't know. It's sort of tough, but yeah, like AJ, like, unfortunately, like, he really hasn't had many wins, and he won the DMC, but that was about it. He really hasn't been a big player. Like, he's been a big character in the company, and he's done a lot of sort of stuff, but he hasn't really been a big player. He just doesn't have the kind of momentum that I would think, would derail someone like Santana. But then again, it sort of starts asking yourself the question of saying, well, what else are you going to do with this guy? Like, or both of these guys. And that's kind of the thing. Like, sometimes perhaps you should do that. And maybe that is where you do this. Like, you could have Santana fight AJ next month against all odds in some kind of street fight or some kind of other match or whatever else it is, and then, go from there. But I don't know. That is up to them. But again, just to me, if you're going to keep this feud going, or you're going to give him something else to do, like, it is like, well, what else is there to do except for, like, maybe, like, win the title or win a number one contendership in some sort of tournament or in some sort of match of some sort. So, yeah, I really don't know about, like, saying what are you going to do with him in this unless you're going to extend this feud. You've got to extend this feud, in my opinion, because it's like, well, what else are you going to do with Santana? And plus, you've got Casey Navarro there to kind of, help with that whole, shenanigans. Yes, Santana can fight it off or whatever else it is, but still, it's the numbers game and so on and so forth. By hook or by crook, he could, Francis could win. And even if he's going to lose the feud overall, it is one of those things that it will elevate him in some ways, because it is like, well, now he's finally felt like he's got a really big win, and he's beat one of the guys, Santana, who's been on a roll for like 6 months. He's only suffered like 1 or 2 losses or whatever else it is. So yeah, like, doing that will really, like, elevate him up. But yeah, I don't know about where you're going to go if you're not going to, put that on AJ. So in this one, I'm actually going to say AJ, even though I wouldn't normally say AJ, just to kind of prolong this feud of some description. Not that he's got much believability behind him, but I do feel like if you're going to continue to try to pad out Santana getting to the title in some ways. And again, that could work for like a fatal 4-way or a fatal 5-way or a King of the Mountain match or something like that at Slammiversary or whatever else it is. So then you have, history between Santana and AJ that sort of has wrapped up-ish, but really hasn't wrapped up. And, now they're in that match to, win that belt or whatever else it is or whatnot. But yeah. The last one that we have on update here is a Knockouts tag team title match between Ash and Heather by Elegance versus Spitfire. Now, this is really a weird one, and we haven't really seen a whole lot from these guys or gals on TV of late, and Spitfire already technically got their contractual rematch, so there's not much story here. But again, it's like there's no other teams really in the company. I kind of feel like this will be pushed to the pre-show, honestly. There's nothing here that's on the pre-show yet. So maybe they'll announce some stuff for the pre-show. I feel like this will probably be on the pre-show because it's got nothing going on into it. But then again, they might be debuting some of their new young wrestlers into the company at some point soon. So, yeah, but then again, I would kind of just let's put them in a tag team. I don't know. That doesn't make 100% sense. But then again, the tag team division has been really bad for a long time. Like I said, this has just sort of come out of nowhere. They haven't even had these gals on TV in the last month. They haven't had a lot of these girls on TV for quite a while. And they've done that a few times in the past. They've just sort of forgotten about these titles and whatnot a lot of times. And it's one of those things where it's like, yes, with Gail Kim gone and whatnot, it does feel like, there is something kind of, even when she was there is something kind of like missing and whatnot from some of this decision making or some of these people who are, in the back or saying, hey, we need to push this or we need to push that or we need to remember putting these people onto the show or, getting them out there so that, when you announce a match like this, people actually go, well, why are they facing each other? It's like, I don't know, maybe we'll get something for next week. They really shouldn't have announced this before that or whatnot. So, but yeah, it's a bit silly, honestly, and I don't really see the point in debuting some new, young wrestlers just to be in the tag team division that continually gets forgotten about basically all the time. So again, I would actually think now that if you do have 5 or 6 other people or whatever else it is now that are kind of there that are kind of not really doing anything, and if you get rid of the tag team titles and say, okay, let's have a secondary singles division title, like an international knockouts title, let's do that. I said before, I don't know how it would work, but again, it would work better than having this thing or whatever else it is, or at least give it a go. But then again, the thing is about the tag titles is it gets more people kind of in the fight, so to speak. You've got 4 people in the fight instead of 2, but if you have a whole bunch more gals that are kind of free to, move up to the Knockouts title or free to come down to the international title or whatever else it is, it kind of opens up a whole lot more opportunities and whatnot. And you can still have somebody being the manager and somebody being their protege or whatever else it is and that sort of thing. You can still have this faction that operates kind of differently and kind of wants the best for this one person or whatever else it is. So again, I said that they should actually have their female equivalent of the main event Mafia at some point. You could almost do that, or sort of start doing that, like, in some ways. Like, but then again, it's like, well, it's not really, because none of them, or except, if somebody gets pushed to being the champion, like Ash does, then it's like, well, now you can start sort of saying, this is the faction to elevate her. And then again, you could have like Maggie and Heather, in the tag division. But then again, it doesn't really make that much sense, again, for that in some ways. Again, if you had Maggie and Heather kind of, in the international division, I don't know. It does never make any sense. Nothing makes any sense in some regards with all of that. Because like a secondary title is just that, it's secondary. So it's really hard to sort of establish a secondary title unless it's something else, unless it's doing something else. I don't even think the international title, like Macklin's done a great job in wrestling and whatnot, and Eric Young and a bunch of other people have done a great job in trying to establish it, and they've tried a fair bit to kind of establish it, but it's really going to be a hard, long slog to keep that thing going. And again, the main title division needs people in that division as well. So again, and it always will feel like the secondary prize or whatever else, if it's not a specific title to a division. You know what I mean? The X division is a specific division. The tag team titles are a specific division. The Knockouts title is a specific division. Like at least like the Knockouts tag titles are a specific division. You've got to kind of fit within that division. But I am very sick of the breakaway tag teams and the mashed together tag teams and whatnot and all of this sort of stuff. But they are doing the best in some ways with what they can. But again, it really doesn't help too much. So anyway, after all that ramble, I guess, who's winning the Elegance brand, or whatever you want to call them? I just don't like, even if you're going to hang up the titles, I don't know, like it doesn't make any sense, but still, maybe like a false, like some really like crazy, like false ending to this would be something, because then you can start saying, let's vacate the titles or something like that. I don't know, but again, without any other teams in this division, it's like, time to figure something else out, and time to figure it out quickly, because I think anything, even just saying let's get rid of this division and let's let people try to challenge for the Knockouts title, let's give them stories to fight for the Knockouts title, and just go from there, because the division just does not work. It provides too many buffers to the title, and it provides too many issues for itself. Like you've got to give somebody something else to do. Yeah, sure, but it's always like, well, that division just absolutely sucks anyone in it, and it is the piss break division, because no one gives a shit. Like no one really gives a shit about it. So and that's it. Like, they do the best of what they can. But again, the gals in the ring and whatnot. But, when you're constantly getting forgotten about and constantly, like, being left out and, like, the last thing to kind of being put together, it's like, oh, yeah, no one really, they don't even care about it themselves. So, like, why should we care? Let it go and stop pretending to care. So I guess it's like, maybe they will go for that false finish, but I highly doubt it in some ways. It's like, they really just have to, at some point say, let's vacate these belts, let's deactivate them and do something, because, we really have to move on from this. So that's where I'm at with it. at least for now. So I'm thinking the Elegance brand will win because, again, it's like, well, why put, like, they've realistically still, they've only just won the belts. Yes, you could flip flop them back or whatever else it was, but or it is. But what does that do? It doesn't really do anything. Like, if you really want to have a great feel good moment for somebody, a tag team, and you want to keep these belts active, wait for Slammiversary. And again, it's like, who else is there in that division? There isn't anyone. So, yeah, I just don't see it, honestly. So, I will wait to see on that in the future. But I feel bad for these girls because they're stuck in this nothing division that no one really cares about, and they're trying to do the best of which what they can. You know, Ash and Heather and, you know, Jody and Danny, they're all really talented. Obviously, the personal concierge is a great heat magnet and whatnot. So again, I do feel like if you were to say, okay, let's figure out a way to, you know, just end this and friggin' move on or whatever else it is and do something else. Yeah, I think that would be the plan in my opinion. So yeah, those are all the things. I believe it is next week that the show is going down. So yeah. Actually, I didn't say, I don't know whether I've brought this up much, but basically all the tickets, not all the tickets, but basically all the floor tickets have been sold, and most of the general attendance tickets have been sold as well. So yeah, we're looking at getting close to a pretty good sellout there for that one. I know it's probably only a 2K or whatever arena, maybe 3K or whatever else it is, but still, that's not too bad for like a B show and whatnot. Um, but yeah, like, so there probably will be one more update, or at least next week, seeing what matches have been added or stipulations have been changed or whatever else it is, especially with the pre-show and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, we'll probably be moving straight on to the review, and then we'll be moving after that straight on to Against All Odds, and then obviously after that, Slammiversary. So it never ends, it never ends, it never ends. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys will come back to enjoy more in another one.